Hello and welcome to the first YouTube video that I've made in a really long time now, I think. So things have been kind of hectic, but I had to come back to talk about this movie, Babygirl, even though I'm probably a couple of months late. So first of all, huge round of applause to the hair and makeup department because at least several $100s went towards Nicole Kidman's wig budget. We've been traumatized quite enough, but this is an A24 production and not a Netflix one, so I think that had something to do with it. Also, thank the gods for casting Harris Dickinson in this role for obvious reasons. If you haven't seen or heard about this movie, the one-line synopsis is Nicole Kidman's character, Romy, is a wealthy tech CEO. She has a loving husband, beautiful family, but she goes on this journey to explore her darker desires when she has to mentor a new, younger male intern at her company. And they begin to have an affair. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, but there's more to it. Onto the video. The movie opens with Romy in the throes of ecstasy with her husband Jacob, but we see her later rushing to another room where she opens her laptop to maybe a live sex chat or just porn. And she gets herself off to that as well. Obviously I can't say it out loud because I might get demonetized by YouTube, I'm not sure. Anyway, she tries to keep herself quiet so that her husband doesn't hear. She's a bit frantic and secretive, and this whole setup implies that she's not getting what she needs from her husband Jacob. Even though they do have sex, she has to, she's not fulfilled by it. Not completely anyway. So I should mention that I liked Jacob in this movie because he wasn't the stereotypical husband we see in these kinds of roles. He's present, he's engaged with his family, he very clearly adores Romy and the girls, and Romy isn't overlooked. This is actually a otherwise really healthy and loving marriage, so I found myself rooting for them the whole time. So the next morning we see Romy having breakfast with her girls, 2 teen girls, and she's rehearsing some kind of speech about leadership. Her husband kisses her goodbye and they're very much a normal happy family. On her way into work, just outside of her office building, there's a random little kerfuffle as an angry dog lets loose and Romy's a little bit shook by it. But a guy manages to soothe the dog and he returns it to his owner before anybody is harmed. This incident is very important. After her speech at the office, Romy has to see a group of interns and they're having some kind of orientation day. One of them, a guy, asks her a question which lightly challenges something that she said in her speech. She's quite caught off guard by this, but before she can answer, her assistant shoos him and the rest of the interns out. The two have already caught each other's attention though, the intern and Romy, even though it's really brief. Later, she spots him and she asks him to make her a coffee. And this is another chance encounter, and she asks him how he got the dog to calm down that morning. As he hands her her coffee, he tells her that she shouldn't be drinking coffee after lunchtime, and he asks her, how many cups of coffee do you drink a day? Romy answers, none of your business, 7. By the way, this guy, Samuel, has this vaguely European-American accent, which kind of adds to his appeal. He's less arrogant intern and more just self-assured, I guess. Because, who's going to be telling their CEO boss on the first day that, she shouldn't be drinking coffee, especially in that tone. Anyway, that evening, Romy tells her husband Jacob, who I only much later realized was Antonia Banderas, that she wants to watch porn while they have sex. She's quite shy when she asks it, and it's as though she's testing the waters, playing at it being kind of a silly idea, but still hoping that he'd be into it. She tries some other, mildly spicy things a little bit in the bedroom. Like, it's clear that she wants to be handled a little bit. She wants her face covered while they have sex. She wants less of the lovemaking and more spice and danger style sex. Her husband, Jacob, is not into it. He says it makes him feel like a villain. So they don't have a dead bedroom or anything like that. Like, it's clear that these two are still both super hot for one another. It's just that Romy has some kink desires that Jacob can't fulfill. At the office Christmas party, Romy notices Samuel and they bump into each other out on the balcony for a cigarette. He tells her that he chose her as his mentor, so it seems like he's going to be around for a while. So Samuel is very polite and respectful to Romy, but he's also kind of the dominant one in their interactions. Like, in small ways, she submits to him, and he's clocked that her response to him isn't negative. So they do the dance, She's still taken aback by his audacity, but also possibly turned on by it. Later, she watches him on the dance floor. He dances like nobody's watching. He's having a ton of fun. Of course, her family is there at this event, so, it's all kept clean. But he's definitely got her attention. The next time she's at the office, they're busy cleaning up from the party, like the leftovers and all the mess they're sweeping up. And Romy sees that they're about to sweep Samuel's tie that he dropped that night. She takes it and she basically inhales it. And who can blame her? And then she stuffs it into her mouth. Look, I read a lot of spicy romances, so I don't know what it is about this movie that's making me act so brand new. 50 Shades of Grey wishes that it could have been this sensual and hot before the two main characters even touched each other. I mean, this is such a juicy and fun role for Nicole Kidman as well. Like, more of this, please. Anyway, Romy bumps into Samuel one of the days on the elevator at work, and he asks her, what's that? Like, and he's pointing to the Botox injection sites, telling her that she doesn't need all that. But he also tells her that he likes her hair with the tendrils flowing down. By the way, earlier in the scene, after she gets her Botox treatments, one of Romy's daughters makes fun of her, of the way she looks. And I found it so interesting that this was included in the script. I mean, let's be real for a minute. Nicole Kidman will always be a beautiful woman, and it's believable that Samuel would be attracted to her, but she has had quite a bit of work done, and it sometimes is a little bit distracting. And I actually kind of thought she was a really good sport for, going along with this in the movie. Anyway, Romy is quite flustered, but she quickly regains her composure. So the way that Samuel delivers this compliment is in what I'm quickly learning is typical Samuel fashion. With a lot of nonchalant confidence while chewing gum. And I mean, also remember, he's younger than her. He likely knows that she has a husband and kids, and she's also his boss. So, yeah. So as a part of the mentor program, she has to have these 10-minute meetings with her mentee, Samuel, and they have to discuss work, and she can answer some of his questions. Romy doesn't really have time for this, and she makes this known to him. She's quite dismissive. Of course, Samuel derails the meeting, and he tells her that he thinks that she likes when she's told what to do. But then he backtracks and he apologizes, and he's like, no, that was inappropriate. And I found this apology really funny because obviously, of course, this is inappropriate, and I think that's the point, and he knows it. I think that the apology was more for Romy's benefit, to put her at ease and back on safer ground, even though, we know that she's kind of intrigued by the inappropriateness of it as well. It's not that Samuel is being insincere, I didn't get that feeling. He just can read the room. Romy moves to end the meeting, and he intercepts her at the door, and he's like, no, keep it closed, keep it closed. He says it a couple of times, not really in a commanding tone, but he's just like asking / telling her. Obviously, also, it's not in a way that makes her feel unsafe. She still ultimately has the choice to leave, but we all know, and she knows that she doesn't want to. So she closes the door. She keeps it closed. And they slightly hover around each other. Oh, I love this. Like, the tension is delicious. So they hover around each other a little bit. She leans in slightly. He teases her a little bit by pulling back for a split second before they kiss. Very, very steamily, might I add. She lets herself go a little bit, and she allows herself to be swept up into this until she returns to her senses and she realizes what she's done. She apologizes, saying that that shouldn't have happened. And anyway, he's quite pleased because it seems as though he's, read her correctly. And she leaves the room, but obviously they've both gotten a taste now, so this is just the beginning. Romy tries to avoid the mentor meetings from then on with him, but he tracks her down, and he's like, look, if you don't want to be my mentor anymore, just let me know so that I can find another mentor, but we have to have those meetings. She's like, okay, but you're very inappropriate. And to be fair, she does chastise him, and she means it. It's not that just because she likes being told what to do that she becomes some sort of sap. If anything, like, the little power struggle is fun for her and then ultimately she tends to submit. Later, she's having a work-related drinks meeting thing at a bar, and he's there, Samuel's there, and of course they spot each other from across the room. You can sense the tension. He plays it cool, doesn't give her any extra attention beyond the acknowledgement, and she elegantly sits there noticing him. And he has a glass of milk sent over to her table, and Romy drinks it. She's being obedient, obviously, because this is what he wants her to do, but she's also being defiant because this is wild behavior to just down a full glass of milk at a bar, especially a glass of milk sent to you by your young intern. By the way, this scene, it was based on something that really happened to the director in real life. She said once in an interview, he ordered me a glass of milk. I thought it was an incredibly hot thing to do and so courageous. And so I wanted to reward him by drinking the whole thing. And I did, she said. While Rain, the director, admitted that she was a little nauseated from drinking the milk, she did think that it was one of the most arousing moments of her life while she was writing the film script. And also she said that the guy who sent her the milk was a famous Belgian actor from 15 years ago. Anyway, whoever that famous Belgian actor was, I like to believe that it was Matthias Schoonhardt, even though there's no evidence for this. Thank you, because this was a very bizarre and sensual scene. Anyway, back to Babygirl. As Romy is settling the bill, Samuel walks past her and he says to her, good girl. Naturally, she's both appalled and aroused by his audacity. So Romy goes to her husband's play. He directs plays at the theatre, But after congratulating him after the play, him and the actors, she excuses herself and she goes back to her office to find a note with a date, with a time and place on it. It's a hotel, and it's kind of a gross looking one too. Of course, this is Samuel, and he's not even there in the room when Romy arrives, so she has to wait for a little bit. And I do wonder if this was by design. Is this part of it, to see if she'd wait? When he does get to the room, Romy tells him that this has got to stop. She has this moment of clarity where you can see that she's like, how did I get here to this point, to this hotel room with this guy? What the heck am I doing? She's not quite past the point of no return yet, although you might argue that she is, because, I mean, she came after all. And Samuel says as much. He's like, well, what do you expect me to do? You came to the hotel room dressed like this. Like, am I not supposed to do anything? He tells her to get on her knees then. And that reminds me, I need to rewatch Fleabag. And after some disagreement / power play, she eventually submits. He has her stand in the corner for a little bit as well, and then she's on the carpet on the floor of the hotel while he pleasures her, and she actually climaxes something that, remember, in the beginning of the movie, she couldn't do with her husband. Oh, Romy just unravels then. As she sobs, Samuel comforts her, and I mean, so I know that Romy is obviously cheating, but before this point, her orgasms were confined to dark rooms in her house, secretly in front of a computer screen. This wasn't anything that she could share with her husband, and so I can imagine that having this experience with somebody who understands her desires and knows how to unlock them in this way and can share them is probably really exhilarating. But of course, she also feels guilty. So I gotta say, when Samuel held her, I don't know, it just felt so sincere. Like, he cares for her, not in a romantic way, but I mean, like, it's good aftercare, making sure that she's okay. She's even wrapped in his hoodie at one point, and it's kind of wild that this doesn't come across as juvenile, but it's actually really sweet. He was quite affectionate and seemed sincere, and he didn't seem to take lightly the fact that Romy was quite vulnerable and she trusted him. Anyway, then that basically starts their torrid affair, and we get a montage of them having sex everywhere. And at one point, he drops a mug on the floor, and he gets her to get on all fours and to pick up the pieces. So cheating aside, I think this is maybe good for Romy to realize that there's no shame in the things that she desires, but obviously she's living this double life now, and this can't go on forever. One day she comes home to find Samuel there, like having a big old chat with her family. Turns out Romy left her laptop at the office, and the other assistant asked Samuel to drop it off at her home. This is a huge boundary that has been crossed, and it feels so wrong and weird to see him exist in a world where her family is as well. You know, because I'd also kind of compartmentalized the two lives a little bit. Anyway, Samuel ends up going for a walk with the family, and they like him, and he seems really well adjusted. I was really interested in seeing him interact with other people, just because we know so little about him that everything about him becomes kind of interesting and fascinating. Anyway, this is all a little too close for home for Romy, and she eventually says they can't see each other anymore. It's a tense breakup, and I don't think it's gonna take, but Samuel is very upset. He pretty much sulks, actually, and she assures him that she won't fire him. I mean, that would be a sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen, but also Romy isn't heartless and she does care for him. Samuel tells her that he can't work with her anymore. He'll ask to be transferred to another department. That's unacceptable for Romy though, because that would draw attention to them, because people would ask questions. One day Romy finally tells her husband that she's never had an orgasm with him, and that confession goes down like a lead balloon. I mean, it's mostly because of the way she says it. It's not in a gentle, safe environment where they could talk about it. Really bad timing, Romy. And so Romy goes to Samuel's work, like he works behind the bar somewhere, and I guess to convince him to either not switch departments or to just generally smooth things over. And Samuel does not want to talk to her. He actually sends one of his colleagues to tell her to leave. She later tells Jacob, her husband, as well, that she didn't mean it, that orgasm comment, and she does a good job of convincing him that she didn't. But you know, that kind of leaves them in the same predicament. Like, she can't have an honest discussion about something that's really important to her, which is a shame. Mind you, just because she, you know, isn't having them doesn't mean that they don't have a good sex life. It's just that, you know, this crucial component is missing. Oh, Romy girl. She meets with Samuel at work, and it seems like they're on the mend, and you know, I told you this breakup wouldn't take. He says, you know, we need to set some ground rules here. I found this really funny. He's like, I would like to tell you what to do, and you have to do it. Those are his ground rules. Those are his ground rules. I really had a good laugh at the nerve of that comment. Anyway, he's like, just admit it. Admit that this is what you want. He tells her to sit on the edge of the table then, and he puts his hand up her skirt, and he tells her to say it. She tells him then that she'll do whatever he wants her to do. And I'm not sure where the line between coercion and sexual domination starts and ends, because he tells her that if she can't say it, then he's going to go to another department. Like, is this still part of the game, or is this something else now? Well, we're not kept guessing for very long. They meet up and Romy is dressed to the nines. If there's one thing that Nicole Kidman can pull off, it's an evening gown. And I love that she's a fancy lady in a lot of the movies because she gets to dress in them. Anyway, Samuel has her undress because he wants to see her, and she's a little bit shy, but she submits. He holds her and he caresses and he calls her his baby girl. He's so the guy who would call a woman baby girl. It's so cheesy, but you're somehow into it despite yourself. Anyway, they dance together and he pours milk on a saucer for her to lap up like a sexy kitten, I guess. And then he licks it off her face. You know, at this point, this is just another random Tuesday for these two, and I'm not even shocked. That evening, as they're laying in bed together, he asks her to hold him. And he seems to be showing, you know, a slightly vulnerable side, and I'm choosing to believe that this is genuine. I actually kind of thought in this moment, like, he had better not fall in love with her because he could just burn her world to the ground. But he doesn't really seem vindictive, and, you know, he tests and pushes boundaries, but this doesn't seem like that kind of story. He's not that kind of guy, right? Anyway, then he comes to Romy's daughter's birthday party at the house with Romy's assistant. So Romy finds out that he's actually seeing her assistant, and she flips, telling him that she doesn't want him seeing other women. He's like, well, what about your husband, Romy? The assistant walks in as they're having this discussion, and they kind of scatter, pretending to have dropped some glass on the floor or something. Later on at work, Romy tells her assistant that she needs to be really careful about Samuel because he's an intern and she has power over him. You see, the assistant had been trying to get Romy to take her more seriously or give her a promotion or something, but Romy never quite had the time to talk about it. Just then, Samuel calls Romy and he tells her that he wants to see her tonight. Again, their talk about the future is cut short. Samuel has her go to a rave, and I'll be honest, this is the point where I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm out. But surprisingly, they have a really good time. Like, they dance together, all sweaty, and they kiss like a couple of partying youths. She asks if he does things like this with the assistant, and he says no. Something to the effect of, you know, with Romy, it's different, and that's why he likes her. And, you know, Romy comes home that night all sweaty from the club, and her daughter is like, Mom, I'm worried about you. And Romy's like, no, I'm good. So Esme, yes, the assistant's name is Esme, sorry about that. Esme comes to the house and she tells Romy that she knows about what's going on between her and Samuel, and that it needs to end, first of all, and that Romy needs to start making more space for women at the company, i.e. Esme. She says that she's not here to destroy Romy by outing her affair, but, you know, her words are kind of vaguely threatening, obviously. I mean, I didn't really care for this too much. I know that Romy is a flawed cheater, but I'm still rooting for her. And I know that it can't end well for her, but I don't want her outed by an opportunistic assistant. On the other hand, if Romy has been overlooking her, Esme is just using the tools at her disposal to get ahead. And that's, you know, corporate culture, I guess. Romy starts to confess to her husband then, and she tells him, Jacob, that she has these dark thoughts and fantasies. And she's tried going to therapy, you know, because she thought that it might be something from her childhood, but, you know, it hasn't helped. And she admits to having an affair one time with a stranger, and Jacob is not buying it. He's not buying that she's so messed up that she had this affair. She jeopardized their children. He wants her out of the house, and, you know, she was the one who made those choices. She's not some sick, broken woman. Much later, Jacob walks in on Samuel and Romy having a tender moment, and the men have it out, a full-on brawl, because now he's realized that actually she's having an affair with her intern. Poor Jacob is heartbroken when he realizes what's going on, and he even suggests to Samuel that Romy is kind of used and abused him, but Samuel's like, no, that's a very outdated notion of what happened and what the dynamic is between us. It wasn't like that. Jacob starts to have a panic attack. Samuel manages to calm Jacob down, and I thought this was an oddly touching moment. Samuel seems to be the people whisperer, I guess. Anyway, actually earlier, he'd asked Romy if she thought that he was a bad person, and she said no, that he senses things about people. Anyway, Romy also says at some point to Jacob that, you know, like earlier when she was doing her little confession, that she sometimes gets turned on by the idea that something is at stake, that there is some kind of danger in her sexual encounters. By the way, like when all of this was happening, for like a very split second, really, it was a fleeting moment, I thought like maybe a throuple situation wouldn't be so bad, yeah. But no, I'm kind of glad that it didn't go there, and you know, that's why they don't pay me to write the scripts. Romy moves out of the house, but then after a while her daughter comes to her and tells her that she needs to come back home. Like, dad needs her. He's drowning in work and he's not wanting to leave the theater. So Romy goes to see him there. At the end of the movie, towards the end of the movie, we find out that Samuel ended up taking a job in Tokyo and that Romy might have had something to do with arranging that for him. And, you know, she's asked something by one of her managing partners, I think, or someone really high up, and he starts to ask questions and Romy shuts him down. Romy and Jacob explore their bedroom activities a little bit more. We also see Samuel in the end in a hotel room, it looks like it, with a dog. So I have a few questions now. Like, is this the same dog from the beginning, and was it his all along? Did he somehow mark Romy before that moment and then he orchestrated the scene in the beginning and pretended like the dog wasn't his? I actually went back and rewatched the scene and he did see Romy, like he saw the impact, you know, that thing had on her. And he paid attention to her before he turned to go. So yeah, I'm guessing that that's his dog. Also, like, for a very fleeting moment, I wondered if Samuel was kind of scamming Romy, or, you know, maybe, no, scamming is the wrong word. Was he just kind of trying his luck the whole time, or did he know what he was doing? I didn't even know if this really even matters, but, you know, the question just occurred to me. I mean, it was also very convenient that he ended up being her mentee, right? When she wasn't really meant to mentor anybody to begin with. Either way, in the end, he's out of the picture, and I kind of like that we got a happy ending for Romy and Jacob, because they were really good together. So, oh, Esme, the assistant, by the way, she got her promotion. So yeah, Romy pretty much fixed everything in her life. She's working on her marriage. She got Samuel shipped off to Tokyo, and Esme got her promotion, which I think was due anyway. And yeah, that was the movie Babygirl. I think this movie precisely met my expectations, might have exceeded them a little bit. A sexy, erotic thriller drama with a little bit more meat on the bone. Anyway, if you have seen it, feel free to share your thoughts, and thank you for watching.